Good evening, and tonight we're talking about Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, 1974 by Sam Peckinpah. Why don't you start us out, Michael?
Well, Brennan, I'd never seen this picture before. You suggested we watch it, and I was amazed. I mean, The Wild Bunch in my eyes is an iconic picture, a and Sam Peckinpah's greatest and one of the greatest, I think, uh, American films. Period. But Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia is a much deeper picture. It's got layers and layers and layers. Now, Peckinpah said it was the only picture he ever made that that was released exactly how he wanted it. I don't know if that was an exaggeration, but you can see all the chances he's taken. You can see the one layer being stripped off after another. When it starts, it feels low budget. It's in Mexico. It feels funky. It feels kind of dangerous. And it's perfectly cast because Warren Oates, who is not a hero, the character he plays is not a hero, but he doesn't look like a hero. Warren Oates never looked like a hero. And this, I think, is his best performance. It's certainly his hardest performance. And he looks, everybody's calling him a loser. He looks like a loser. Uh, the Mexican actress, and I want to get the pronunciation right, I wrote it down here somewhere, Isela Vega, who was about 35 at the time, is, I've never seen her before. I know she's famous and was famous as an entertainer and actress in Mexico and Latin America, but she is extraordinary. What she brings to the film is extraordinary, and the people are shocked even at the title, "Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia." Right there, Jasmine didn't want to watch it, and and uh, and the beginning. It's funny because the first thing I noticed in the very beginning, you see a pregnant young woman in a white dress uh, by the side of a peaceful river. There are wild geese, etc., on the river. It's the most peaceful scene Sam Peckinpah ever shot, to exaggerate a little bit. And then immediately, it you see this girl is in a great deal of trouble, and her father, who was a big crime boss, the boss of bosses in his part of the world, played by that wonderful actor who played Machete in no, that's not his name, Mapache, General Mapache in The Wild Bunch, and he wants to know the name of the person who impregnated his daughter. She won't tell him. He has his men cause her pain, intense pain, in front of the entire family, the entire everybody. You see how the women are looking at this, and Peckinpah gives them intense close-ups, and she tells the name, and he offers $1 million to anyone who will bring him the head of Alfredo Garcia. And word goes out, and it filters down to this Warren Oates, who plays Benny, who is a barroom piano player, drunkard, low-level person in terms of society. What did you think of him?
Well, I think that this whole movie is kind of his just a very quickened spiritual awakening for Benny, who has been running away. Um, he's a veteran. He's kind of ran away to Mexico. Um, those guys come in, the Gig Young and I think it's
Robert
Helmet.
Weber.
Yeah, Robert Weber. Yeah, both of whom are kind of funny guys, '70s actor guys. But they come into the bar and they they rough up a woman right in front of Benny, and Benny doesn't do anything, and he's kind of this a very sad character. Um, uh, but I think that over the course of the film, he goes through some very deep changes, where and his conversations with Alita, um, I think are very poignant. Where in the first real conversation where they're driving away from the interaction with Chris Christopherson, and he says none of this is sacred or something like that, and like you and I aren't sacred. And over the
Yes.
course of the film, through all these experiences that he has, he discovers what is really sacred, in life, and what morality is, and what is of value. Um, and it's interesting because each of these interludes are punctuated by a baptism. There's a literal baptism at the end, but water takes is a very is a character in this film. I think that water,
That's really good.
its
That's really
relation,
good. You're right.
water and its relation to the Virgin Mary, and it starts out with the pregnant young woman, who's
Right.
being lost her virginity to Alfredo Garcia, um, sitting in front of the water, the placid water, right? And as
Yep.
we go through the movie, there's a series of traumatic experiences followed by a type of baptism after the experience with Chris Christopherson. They go to a hotel, and when they enter the hotel, to the side of the manager's booth, there's a calendar there with a woman in a cloak in front of the ocean. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then when they get into the hotel room, and she goes and takes a shower. It's like the other, like, really poignant scene where she's sitting in the shower, and
And that is the turning point of the film.
that's a big turning point in the film. He tells her that he loves her, and they connect, very deeply. And then after that, they're sitting in a I think it's another hotel room, and they're having another conversation where, like, it just gets deeper and deeper between them. Just before they go to the grave site, they're sitting, and they're talking, and behind, on the wall behind them, is a poster of the Virgin Mary on a blue background.
The Virgin of Guadalupe.
Yeah, the
Virgin of
Virgin of
Guadalupe.
Guadalupe. Um,
She
and then
appears here and there in the film, in the background kind of thing,
right,
posters and photographs.
right. Um, and then after the whole gravesite scene, which is, this is he's coming out of the grave, in a sense. He's being
Yes.
reborn, but his
Yes.
but the woman, he leaves behind the woman. He goes over to, right after he exits the cemetery. There's a shot of a faucet dripping water. Then he goes over to the horse trough, the village water trough or whatever, and he starts to and he's splashing the water on his face. And over the period of the movie, he's becoming less and less materialistic, right? Like and by the end of the movie, he doesn't care about the money anymore, right? It's all
Yes.
about honor, and it's all about loyalty, and it's all about ethics and morals, and and I wonder, at the end of it, like, if he hadn't, like at the end of it, he's about to run away, and the whole audience is probably saying, "Dude, get the money." but but he goes back for the money, and you wonder, like, if he hadn't gone back for the money, would he have been able to escape the compound, right? But I think that overall, I mean, the esoteric part of this movie, because I think there's a whole nother level that's exoteric about Mexico and women and the relationship between men and women. But the whole esoteric theme of this movie is him uh, finding out what is sacred about humanity and women and the role of a man and what all that means, all these things that he's been running away from, whether it's into a bottle or into Mexico. And the other thing is that alcohol is another character in this movie.
Yes, alcohol is definitely a character. There is almost not one scene in which there isn't a bottle of whiskey.
Right. Yeah. And no matter what he's doing, he's holding on to that bottle
Yes,
of whiskey, right?
yes.
But I wondered, I couldn't really get a handle on it, like as and in other movies too. I wonder about the role of alcohol and whether it's a agent to make people say what's really on their minds, or in this movie, is it something that cleanses the people of extraneous thoughts, of superfluous thinking, and like cleanses them of that, and they can see a little more clearly what's really going on, if that
I
makes
think
any
what happens
sense.
with Benny, the Warren Oates character, is that he can't he can't connect with that part of himself that he needs to connect with without it. He's truly and truly a drunk who can't be himself anymore without the alcohol. But he gets to a point with Elita. There's that long scene before the bikers come. There's that long scene with them under the tree.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's extraordinary in all of Peckinpah's work. You have never seen that scene. And in fact, you got to go to John Cassavetes to see a scene like that, where a conversation goes on for, what is it, like 15 minutes? And and it begins at one level, and it goes to another level, and it goes to another level, and he'll swig the alcohol to get there. But Elita doesn't need the alcohol to get there. When he asks her at the end of the conversation to toast to Alfredo Garcia, she doesn't do it. She's not He's not offended by that, but she just won't go there. She doesn't need it, and he does, and that's just how it is. It's not a condemnation. It's not a recommendation. It is. This is where this guy is. Without the alcohol, he can't function. Some people have said that Warren Oates is a thinly disguised self-portrait of Peckinpah, who said who is said to have said anyway, on this shoot, I can't direct unless I'm drunk.
Huh.
And in terms of his career, some people call this the last real Sam Peckinpah film. And I was thinking myself, before I tried to read any background on it, I was thinking, I looked at his filmography and went, this is the last time that Sam Peckinpah really says what's on his mind. And this is the last time he made a film that really grips you. And I can see why it turned a lot of people off, because the reviews were bad and all that. I can see why it's hard to watch that first half hour, because you see brutality and nobody's doing anything about it. It's not like the movies to do that. You see a level of life that is very uncomfortable, and the thing you see that contrasts it are these absolutely cruel Mexican and Yankee hoods, really. And then the cruel bikers. Uh, and they're not really alive, those people. All they can be measured by is, all that's important to them is how cruel they can be. That is their strength. Where, I want to get back to the great things you were saying. I want to circle back to that because you were really on a roll there. How can I circle back to that? In the conversation with the long conversation under the tree, where you see them falling in love on a level they haven't been. She's a prostitute. He's a grifter. She's been a prostitute for a long time. When the Chris Christopherson biker is going to rape her, she tells Benny, I've been down this road before, you haven't.
Yeah.
It's not the first time she's been raped. She can handle herself. And in fact, she is handling herself in the sense that she does get Christopherson kind of under her spell. And you're thinking, this is live or die for Benny. Lauren Oates, you see how humiliated he is, you see how angry he is, and you're thinking he's going to do something with the bottle he's drinking, where the other biker is sitting near him holding a gun and the guitar. And instead, he throws the bottle, but what he's really getting for is the frying pan, which he brains the guy with. The guy's not expecting that at all, and the audience is not expecting that at all. And then he gets the guy's gun and kills him. And then he kills Christopherson. And that is also a kind of baptism for him. He has stood up for something. He can't let that happen to her. And it's then in the shower later, when she's in the shower weeping, that he says he loves her. But I like what you're saying about these baptisms. What else did you see?
Well, on an exoteric level, I think that this film was a. I don't think that Peckinpah was comfortable with how he depicted Mexico in The Wild Bunch, and
Yes,
and
very good.
I think that the Mexican people themselves, or the common Mexican people, are a character in this film. Because
Mm-hmm.
over and over again, he's showing just your run of the mill Catholic, downtrodden Mexican person. And if you've ever been to Mexico and actually not gone to a resort, but actually interacted with
Mm-hmm.
real Mexicans, as I worked with them for
Mm-hmm.
years and I've spent most of my life with them. These people will give you the shirt off of their back, no matter how poor they
Yes.
are. They're real Catholics. They're they're and I think that he, in a sense, this film, he really wanted to depict that in this movie, and not just showing them as weak,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of downtrodden, hardworking people, but he shows them that family, Diego Garcia's family, standing up for themselves, but
Yes.
not for a material uh, gain, but for honor, for
Right.
to put their to put the corpse back together, basically, and to
Mm-hmm.
bury this guy with
Yes.
some honor. And I think that scene in the first scene in the bar where Gig Young and Robert Weber come in,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of, that whole dynamic of it is really a a kind of parallel with America's treatment of
Mm-hmm.
Mexico.
Yes.
I think he was trying to get something across
Absolutely.
there too. And so I really think that that's a big theme in the movie is the Mexican people and the kind of salt of the earth quality of them and so that's another thing. And then the movie that he made right before this, Straw Dogs, is really about Dustin Hoffman growing balls too, right? But
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much the. I mean, there's other themes in that movie, but that's like the main theme in that movie. And it's interesting what Peckinpah said about this, that this is the only movie that he got to make like he wanted to make, or like he
Mm-hmm.
intended for
Right.
it to be made. Um,
Right.
and I guess I was reading the Wikipedia thing about it, and it says that says Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia went into production in late September 1973, and Peckinpah was quoted in an October issue of Variety magazine as saying, "For me, Hollywood no longer exists. It's past history.
Mm-hmm.
I've decided to stay in Mexico because I believe I can make my pictures with greater freedom from here." This upset the motion
Mm-hmm.
picture and television unions, and they openly censured the director for his statement at their national conference in Detroit. They also threatened Alfredo Garcia with union boycotts upon its release, labeling it a runaway production. In his defense, Peckinpah claimed that he was misquoted. Before the film was to be released, the unions relented on their boycott threat, which is very interesting, and I wonder how much the content of the movie also offended Hollywood too.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
Yeah,
I'm sure it did. The rawness, and uh, Isela Vega as Lita is half naked through like what 20 minutes of this film.
yeah,
No, nobody. You can think of another. You can't think of a Hollywood film where you've ever seen that. Uh, and yet she has full dignity. This is not a victim. This is a very tough-minded, very spiritual person who, when she decides she's broken-hearted and he's going to go through with this beheading, she can't look at it, but she's there. He loves her. She loves him. And when she says, "We'll be together. That's enough," and he says, "No, it's not enough." She stays with him anyway, and she knows he has another step to climb,
hmm.
and she senses the price. I mean, there's a long shot of her, and it's just her face, and one tear comes, and then a few moments perhaps, and another tear comes from the other eye. That's not artificial tears. You can't do that with artificial tears.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
put artificial tears in, they come out pretty right away. You want to get that close up quick. That's something coming out of her. That's a piece the artist found, and 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 he leaves her there. She's dead. And anybody listening to this who hasn't seen Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, I promise we're not giving away the power of this film.
yeah,
It'll take you anyway. And he leaves her in the grave of Alfredo Garcia. And he gets even mad at her for a second. This is where you want to be.
right,
At her corpse. But as he's going away, he realizes the loss of her. Even when the family comes after him, and he's outnumbered, he's surrounded, but he still can't give it up. He talks to them with respect, and he still can't give it up. And then those hoods come, Big Young and Robert Weber, thinking that this is going to be a pushover thing. Because everybody they underestimate the Mexicans, and everybody always underestimates him from start to finish in this film. And it's not like they're wrong. He is a loser. But he says to them, to the hoods, the first time he meets them, he's about to leave, he says, "Nobody loses all the time."
yeah, yeah,
And that's the kind of resource that he has in himself to pull it together when he has a chance to pull it together. But you're right. I think all the things you said have been beautiful. She has led him to this place that she is open to, and she stays with him even though he's not at the same level that she is yet. And that turns into a sacrifice on her part. And again, you have the Catholic, the idea of she sacrifices his life that he may be her life that he may be resurrected spiritually.
Yeah, yeah.
And he is, even though he doesn't make it through the film, he becomes, as you said very well, he becomes so much more than he was at the beginning of the film, where he was really a nothing. And he goes through this, and you can, I'm not surprised that Peckinpah said that he could work with freedom. And I'm not surprised that people were shocked at the, much the way they got shocked at Cassavetes' films until after he died. He became, then they put him on a stamp. But in that it was shocking and painful to watch a bunch of this film. And the revelations came hard. They did not come easy with soft music and that kind of Spielberg color where everything seems to glow.
Yeah.
This was a flat, hard place, and it's very true what you say about Mexico, the Mexicans. He would contrast the robotic coldness of the Yankee hoods with these wonderful brief scenes, like traveling camera brief scenes of the liveliness of the children. Where you had children everywhere, especially in the first 20 minutes of the movie, and laughing, playing, stuff that can't be improvised. I mean, he just can't be directed. He just basically, it seems like he just let them go and do what you want to do, and we shoot it, and he got this marvelous vivacity and joy in the children playing, and contrasting that with what's happening with the adults. And the children are poor, but but they're really playing. You can't fake that. These kids aren't actors. And that's one of the, especially in the beginning, the first half of the film, you see a lot of children. And then at the very end, you see when the big boss is shot and everybody's in shock, there's a little boy that it just shows you steps out a couple of steps from the adults he's been standing with, and he's well dressed, he's like a little prince, and looking all around in bafflement, not fear, but kind of worry. What are the grown-ups doing? What's my part in this? Kind of expression on his face. And you see at that moment, and I know we're not going linearly, and I'm sorry about that, but you see at that moment the faces of the women who were photographed so vividly at the beginning of the movie, and you see the faces as they're watching this, and there's some kind of relief, some kind of fierceness in how they're watching it. And Benny Warren Oates points the gun at the big boss, and the boss's daughter says, "Shoot him." And that's when shoots him. And everybody's really shocked. The world has turned upside down. This is not supposed to be happening. How can this happen? How can this chain of events come back and kill the man who started it? And the whole time, Alfredo Garcia is already dead, Evita says, in a car accident, which is this weird little detail. At first you don't believe, but then you realize, yeah, he is dead. There is a grave.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's part of.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's part of the circle of this film. The circle it makes. That you have the girl by the river so peacefully right at the beginning. And the next time, and at the end of the movie, she's the one who says, shoot him. And she's the one from whom the action proceeds at that moment. What were you going to say?
At some point in the movie, he stops caring. He starts caring more about why they want Alfredo Garcia's head than he cares about
Yes.
the money. It's kind of like this midpoint where he's starting to not care about the money as much, and he's starting to care on another level about like honor and I mean, it's after she dies, I think, that he starts to grow in him, and and he kills the two Mexican guys that took the head, and then there's a long period there where he's just driving around with the with the head.
Yes, yes. And the head is full of flies.
Yeah.
And first he gets regular ice, and that melts too fast, and he gets dry ice.
Well, he tries pouring the liquor over his head. Yeah, he tries to pour the liquor over his head first to get the
Yes.
smell. And the whole time you're saying to yourself, "Why don't you just put it in the trunk, man?" Like, why don't?
I know. I was thinking exactly the same thing. What the fuck? Why aren't you putting it in the trunk?
Because Alfredo Garcia is a character, and his head is a character in the movie.
Yeah, and he's got to talk to him on the front seat.
Yeah, and he doesn't roll down the
He's talking
window.
to him.
He doesn't roll down the window until later in the movie either.
Right.
But it's almost like he's punishing himself with the presence of this rotting head. And I couldn't really tease out what does the head mean, and why is he subjecting himself to the rotting head, and what but yeah.
He goes through this almost initiation of degradation.
Yeah.
And he's filthy, and he's talking to the head, and he goes to the hotel room where he told her he loved her in the shower, and he says to the head, "I had a friend who took a shower here once."
Right.
And is, as you say, with the baptism, he's purifying himself in that shower, and then next time you see him, he's clean and going and entering the last phase of the movie.
Right.
He's going to the gringos,
Right.
and saying, "What's this really worth?" They're going to give him $20,000 or 10, I can't remember.
10,000.
And so you're going to give him $10,000. You're going, "What's this really worth?" And then and they don't the last thing they expect is for this guy to surprise them. And that's his strength. That's how he gets in. He puts the gun in with the head. It works twice.
Yeah.
Then and when he has to present the head to the boss of bosses, and so in that sense, the head is his passport back to a place where he can live with himself, even if it's just for a few moments.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
when he goes to see the hoods and he brings them the head for the $10,000. He's already, I think he's already decided that he needs to know why they want what Alfredo
Yes.
Garcia has done, and
Yes.
he decides while he's there that these guys have to die. And I gotta say,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen a movie before where um, Warren Warren Oates like shooting people was so satisfying. Just watching him kill people for some reason,
It is true.
it's just really
It is
satisfying,
true.
you know. And I think it's Warren Oates partly just being Warren Oates, but it's also the character and the situation. But yeah, there's something very very satisfying about maybe it's the way it's shot too, but yeah.
No, it's just you feel a little bit shamefaced about it, but
Yeah.
yeah, kill those guys. Kill those people. Yeah, I'm not proud of that, but I just feel it too. But and the whole. I mean, with Peckinpah, killing always has a ceremonial thing to it. He didn't use much slow mo in this at all, but which you see in so many of his movies, like he didn't want to stretch that effect, but still, the way Oates does it is as you say, it is this almost celebratory thing where he's getting rid of a bunch of rot in them and through them in himself.
One other thing I noticed, just as far as symbolism, is that when he starts out and he's on this mission, and it's all just a kind of materialistic mission, and he's angry and drunk and everything, he's driving a red car, right? And then
Yes.
over the course of the film, then he steals the green car of the two Mexican hoods, and then but he ends up
Mm-hmm.
in a blue car. Like when he kind of like
That's
purifies
true.
himself at the end, he's he's driving a blue
That's
car.
true.
Yeah, but
That's really good.
it really I just have this image in my mind of Sam Peckinpah as this kind of wild drunk guy, and all the
Mm-hmm.
deep layers in this movie, and in the Wild Bunch too, but especially in this movie, and just the real emotion in this movie that he evokes from the actors and actresses, and just the themes. It's just, I don't know, it's hard to reconcile that image of Sam Peckinpah with something so well thought out, um, for me.
Well, Elisa Vega said I found a thing of hers where she said that uh, his direction was very meticulous and on the money, and she and Warren Oates uh, were hearing from him exactly what they needed to do what they did,
Hmm.
and he was considerate. And she said the same thing about Warren Oates. Warren Oates was really compassionate, considerate. Uh, you got the sense from her that being on the set, was, you get the sense that they had fun making it, that they had a camaraderie making it,
Mm-hmm.
and given that she's got to walk around half naked for about 20 minutes within this picture and keep her dignity, and you got an all-male crew. It must have. John Cassavetes said the director creates the atmosphere on a set, and the atmosphere must have been such that they had the freedom to go to difficult places and secure in the way the director and the crew and everybody involved was pulling for them, because that's very hard to do. An actor is very, very vulnerable in front of that camera, and if they're going to really show you what they have, especially in a film like this, you have to have an atmosphere on the set that comes out of the director, that is compassionate toward the actor, that is generous toward the actor. And Peckinpah, if you look at those conversations that Warren Oates and I keep wanting to say Elisa, but I know that's wrong.
Alita.
Isela Vega,
yeah.
The actress playing Alita. Those takes go on for a long time. He doesn't cut.
Yeah.
You can see him every once in a while using a close-up. But those takes of the two of them together under the tree and in the shower, they go on for a long time. They're not choppy. They're not with reaction shots. It's the two people in the shot and giving what they give. And that is not Hollywood directing at all, especially then. That is not, for instance, how he directed The Getaway, which is a purely Hollywood film. I love the film, but it's Hollywood all the way. You have Steve McQueen at the peak of his career. You have Catherine Ross at the peak of her box office. You've got all these wonderful character actors around them, and you have a happy ending. It's pure Hollywood. And none of those conversations are like that. Here, he just settled down and he trusted his actors and they trusted him. And you had to have, wheeling back to what Isela Vega said, you had to have trust in the director to act like that with those long takes. You had to trust that he wouldn't let you go wrong. You had to trust that he would know what's valuable and what you're doing. And it really shows. I was so impressed with this development of this relationship, which is not only rare in a Peckinpah film, but it's rare, period. In a film like Bonnie and Clyde, which is supposedly all about their relationship and is really sort of all about their clothes, you get the flash, but you don't get that intimacy, not once. And you get intimacy here.
Mm-hmm.
Without it being forced and without it being underlined, you get intimacy between a man and a woman. They've been together. She's a prostitute. She's a grifter. It's not that they're new to each other, but you get an intimacy that you rarely see. They develop it. It's like the characters are discovering what intimacy really means, as though neither one of them really knew before.
Yeah, yeah. That I mean, the intimacy part is so genuine in this movie, partly because it shows all the warts and all aspect of intimacy, especially in that first scene where he wakes up and he's got crabs, and he's like on the edge of the bed killing the crabs, and I mean it really it is so genuine and so base, but also sacred in a sense, and
yes, no, definitely,
and it really like over the course of the movie, it just really filters out or sifts out the real genuine sanctity of humans, and it's not, I don't think I've ever seen that in any other movie. I don't think that I've seen a relationship that genuine in any other movie.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And sanctity is a wonderful word to pick out of the atmosphere for what he finds in this
Yeah.
funky, but yet the quality of sanctity. And because this movie is nothing if not funky, and I mean complete with crabs, and the quality of sanctity, and and he doesn't make it to the end of the picture, but at the very end of the picture, he is a happy man.
Yeah, and it's interesting that esoteric idea of the feminine as the sifter, as the kind of the limiter, or it as something that separates the sacred from the base, or the real from the fake, and that idea of Mary as that too. It's very apparent in this movie, and I'm really just infinitely surprised at the just the depth of the themes in this movie. Yeah.
That was my major feeling as I went through, as it progressed. Surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something had happened. I go, man, where are you going next with this? And then it would surprise me again, and it would surprise me again, and
yeah, it's not a boring movie at all. Like, it never
oh no.
drags. Yeah. Yeah, and my impression of this film growing up, after not seeing it or anything, I always got the impression that it was just like a super violent, uh, funky movie. I never ever got any intimation that it was like it actually is. But I guess Siskel and Ebert liked it.
Yeah, speaks well of them. I can't imagine who was up at New York Times around that time. Vincent Canby. I can't imagine him liking it.
Well, it says here,
And
Nora Sayer for the New York Times wrote that the film started off well but disintegrates rapidly. Without Garcia as a victim, the plot has almost nowhere to go. Therefore, random episodes are slung into the narrative, including one of the silliest near rape scenes I've ever seen. But even this gratuitous garbage can't prevent the movie from dragging.
no, she really, really, really
Yeah,
didn't get it.
didn't get it. Yeah.
Because one of the things that I noticed in my own feeling about it as it went on was I was transfixed. I was, where are you going? Where are the characters going? Where's the film going? What is going to happen next? I had no idea. And I didn't find anything gratuitous about it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
As I think back, I did not find anything gratuitous.
I think that this is one of those movies that really separates the I don't know, it in a way it kind of like filters out or sifts out the genuine film fans, or life fans in a sense from each other, like the kind of fake
Yes, it does.
fake from the real. Yeah, it's a yeah, yeah, what an amazing movie. I was surprised that you'd never seen it before.
It came out before. I think it came out. I started at the Austin Sun at the end of 1974.
Oh, right, yeah.
And last week of October 1974, and it came out, I believe, in the spring. And that spring, I didn't have any money to go to movies, even at the prices they were then. But it's also not, honestly, I'm thinking back hard. I haven't heard, for years, as you know. I mean, we were surrounded by film critics, right?
Yeah.
John Powers, Ellen Canode, and Ginger Varney, and Steve Erickson, and Bob Nebraska. I mean, we were surrounded by people who really knew cinema. Uh, Daniel Weatherby, uh, and I never heard anybody mention this picture.
Yeah, I think that
And I don't remember a discussion about this picture.
I think that it probably was blacklisted to a certain extent, and probably didn't come out for long. Um, it
And remember that home video didn't really start to hit until about 1985.
Right.
When you started doing, when it became feasible, for, you know, decently income to moderately income people to get a DVR. And when sometimes a VHS tape of a new issue cost $100. Can you imagine? But sometimes they did.
Yeah.
And reissuing of old movies, I imagine it would have been hard to get a decent print. I don't remember this movie being shown at, the New Art and the Venice and all those, the Lincoln, whatever that was, all those revival theaters that they used to be in LA, like there were about a dozen of them. I don't remember this. Ginger Varney and I on the weekly would select our top 10 revival selections of the week. There were so many revival movie theaters, and they were showing so many movies that we would give our top 10 recommendations of what was going to play that week. And I don't remember the ballad of the Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia coming up.
It's funny too because people are always saying like, "Bring me the head of so and so."
Yes,
right.
It became a popular trope,
right.
whatever they call them, for a movie people had never seen. Also, when I tried to get it on YouTube, what came up was, "This is copyrighted material in your country."
Oh.
In your country, this is copyrighted material and cannot be shown on YouTube.
Huh.
So, I've got a sound-activated television, which sometimes would be a real pain in the ass. But I said, I pushed the button and Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, and I could rent it for $3.99.
Yeah.
And if I had MGM Plus, apparently I could have seen it on MGM Plus. So eventually everything gets out there because they're so hungry for product. But I was surprised also that the print was as good as it was.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. I also I just wanted to mention the orchestration is really good. With Jerry Fielding, that was also really remarkable.
Yes. The song she sings in the car, Benny's song, is actually a hit song she composed and had been a hit in Mexico.
Huh. Interesting.
Because that was the other thing that was clear. She was a really good singer. Because the environment wasn't giving her any help. That wasn't dubbed singing. There was some dubbed dialogue, but that wasn't dubbed singing. You heard the environment of the singing. And she did it very casually, so it didn't call attention to it at all. But the sense of the sense of song in her was quite strong.
Yeah, I guess she died a year ago.
Yeah.
She was 81. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that performance is very remarkable. It's just I mean, she should have got Best Actress for that.
She was nominated for Best Actress in Mexico.
Ah.
She didn't win it. She was nominated.
Huh.
the film was nominated for Best Foreign Film in Turkey. That's what you can find out on the internet. You can find out that it got a nomination for Best Foreign Film in Turkey.
I wonder if Peckinpah went to Turkey for the ceremony.
Somehow I doubt it. But,
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to say about it?
uh, no, just one detail that
Yeah.
I appreciated. It went by so quickly I had to rerun it. Uh, when he is bringing the head, and unbeknownst to the Yankee gangsters, also bringing a gun into these gangsters, these white gangsters who were so sure of themselves. Their boss is getting manicured, his feet manicured by two
Right.
blondes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's reading a Time magazine with Nixon on the cover.
That's right. Yeah.
And this isn't a film that's trying to make political statements. It's making human and spiritual statements, making emotional statements. But it's just there. These guys and Nixon pretty much equal morally. Equating that with, what, if you
Right.
just read the raw facts, is a war criminal.
Yeah. Yeah, the American corruption and exploitation of
Yes.
the third world is definitely a theme in the movie. Yeah. Okay, man. Well, that was good.
Yes, and just a general surprise of here's a movie we both heard about for years because everybody knows the title,
Yeah.
and yet here it is, and it's a gem. It truly is the funkiest gem maybe that ever was, but it's a gem.
Yep. Okay.